The sea has never been friendly to man. At most, it has been the accomplice of human restlessness. Welcome to Sunless Sea. This is an adventure game, very heavily narrative-driven, and it takes place in a setting known as Fallen London, which is a sort of alternate timeline, 1800s, London setting, as the name might suggest, except London has been dragged underground and now is nestled on the shores of this vast, dark underground lake. And there's all sorts of weird magic and mysticism and things that go on. And it's a really, really interesting and unique setting. The writing in this game is impeccable. It's great writing, very fabulous narrative. The gameplay, it's alright. It's not the best. Most of the game is centered around a sort of choose-your-own-adventure style setup, where we make choices and we deal with the outcomes of those choices. Mechanically, we are the captain of a ship. We have a few attributes here at the top that govern our likelihood of success at various tasks. We have iron, which is sort of our fighting attribute. We have mirrors, which is like intelligence or wisdom. We have veils, which is sort of like sneakiness. We have pages, which deals with weird lore and esoteric knowledge. And then we have hearts, which is sort of like charisma, our social stat. And here we go, let's start this off. 3 decades ago, in the reign of Victoria, London was stolen by bats. Now it lies a mile below the surface. It was dreadfully inconvenient for everyone, but it opened a vast black ocean to you. Welcome to the Untersee. So first things first, we're going to decide upon our past, what sort of background this captain came from. And I usually go, all of these different backgrounds, they'll have a few minor impacts on the story stuff, but mostly they're just about which of your 5 attributes is going to start out higher than the others. And I typically go with the street urchin one, the orphan upbringing, because it gives higher veils, which is the ability to sneak. And combat in the early stages of the game, and hell, even oftentimes in the late game, just isn't worth it. It's a much better idea to try to sneak around enemies. So we'll go with the street urchin. Your urchin gang cast you out when you grew too tall. You took to sea rather than graduate to larger crimes. That last big score was enough to buy you a ship. This gives a bonus to Veils, the skill of subtlety and evasion. Your friend, another Longshanks, knows a little of gunnery, only a little, but she can help. So this is the first officer that we are receiving. She came from the fact that we were a street urchin, and she's a gunner. Now, officers are special NPCs that fill some function on a ship that you might expect, such as gunner or surgeon, cook, chief engineer, first officer. And the officers that you equip, they will give you bonuses to certain attributes. So you can see here the gunner gives iron +1. Most officers actually give quite a lot more to attributes than that, but that's just what you get for starting out. The other thing about the officers is that they all have their own storylines. So you can actually talk to your officers and try to figure out and puzzle out what it is that they need done or what they're trying to do or something about their past, and you can progress those stories to usually at some point upgrade the boosts that they give you and resolve a pretty satisfying story. So here we see this list of stuff that happened. This is going to happen pretty much after any challenge or anything is completed. We'll see some information like this. Here we've gained echoes, that's the currency. We have our officer, we've gained the veils, that's our stat again. And we also see some news items. Someone is looking for passage. Next, we're going to choose an ambition. These are I think some of these are kind of like win conditions of the game. Like how exactly do we want the game to end? We can try to pursue some of these. And the one that I always try to do, but I've never actually gotten around to finishing it, is immortality. Eternal life sounds like something you'd enjoy, and it's said that the presbyter, the ruler of the elder continent, has lived forever. The presbyteriate guards its secrets fiercely, but amidst the clamor of beer stains of the blind helmsman, a salt-scarred navigator is telling tales of the continent's deepest interior, of a city called Nida, and the origin of the presbyter's long life. Where is he getting his information? Bring wine. He is susceptible to wine. So there we go. We just got some stuff about a quest there. We can talk to this guy in London, but first we'll have to purchase some wine to bring to him. And last but not least, we're going to pick how we're going to be addressed, like titles. I usually go with either captain or citizen, and I'll go with citizen this time around. A term of address popular among those of egalitarian sentiments. Citizen, perhaps you're some sort of rabble-rousing enthusiast, eh? So we'll go with the egalitarian citizen title. And last, we just have to pick a portrait and then a character name. We'll go with this bandaged up guy and do the standard Salty John. Alright, so we see this stuff with this book. This is pretty much what it's going to look like whenever we're in a port. We see some artwork of the port, and then we see all these different things. These are all little cards that we can choose from and sort of figure out what we're trying to do. So first things first, let's see this passenger. Someone in the docks wants to board your ship. The unsettled salvager. She wants to go to the city of Venderbite. She visits Wolfstack every day in Z-stained rags, begging for passage. No captain will look her in the eye. So we'll go ahead and accept her. She embraces you. I'd kiss you, but my beloved is prone to jealousy. We were parted, but the ancient captains at Venderbite will know where she is. Alright. So now we have a passenger wanting to go somewhere. Whenever we're in London, we can visit our lodgings. Here you may catch up with your correspondence, rest, or retire altogether from seafaring life, which would end the game. The better your lodgings, the better the quality of your retirement, naturally. So one thing is always good is to read the morning papers. This gives us news, which we can then trade when we're out and about on the seas. We can exchange information, basically. News from abroad. The Khanate is threatening war. They always are. London's colonies on the Carnelian coast want independence. They always do. The Untersee, the papers report, has undergone another alteration. Not yet it hasn't. You'd know. Oh-ho, a promotional coupon from Mrs. Plenty's Provisioners for a half-cask of salt herring. You could use that. So we gained our recent news, and we also gained a supply. When we're out at sea, we have 3 resources that we want to manage. The first is fuel. If we run out of fuel, we can't travel anymore. The second is supplies. You need to feed yourself and your crew. And the third is terror. And the higher terror gets, unsettling things will start happening. And if terror maxes out, then it's no holds barred on what sort of crazy shit could go down. Another thing we can do in our lodgings is we can rest. We don't need to rest right now. There's no purpose. Basically, resting will reduce terror by a tiny amount, but also if we've been injured, we can heal. The way that injury works is you get what is called wounds. Wounds can go up to 3, and once it reaches 3, you die. So it's a good idea to rest when you're hurt, unless something in the story necessitates that you be hurt. There are things like that. So what else is it that we can go ahead and do now? I'm going to save some of this for later. Let's offer passage to a tomb colonist. We're already heading to Venderbite anyway, so here we go. It's oddly difficult to die in fallen London, but when a Londoner is too tatty and wretched to live, they wrap themselves in bandages and take ship for the tomb colonies. Your crew cart these ones aboard in padded coffins. They'll sleep there until the journey is done. So now we have another passenger. Do we want to hire on more crew? We can have up to 10 crew in this starting ship. I think it's usually a good idea to max out your crew. Because if at any time things kill your crew goes down to 0, then you will die too if you're at sea, because you have no way to man the ship. So here's some shops. We can see what sorts of things we can buy and sell at various shops. We can go ahead and sell this Advice for Captains book. That's always a good thing to do because I already know the game, so there's nothing in that book that I need. And that's just an easy 50 echoes. And we were talking earlier about that quest for immortality thing. It mentioned that somebody that I need to talk to likes wine. So we'll get this cask of wine and we'll go back to this ambition. Alright. Coax tales of immortality from him. Nida's walls are basalt, but within them it is as close to a paradise as man can make. 1,000 fountains, the streets paved with gem slabs, and the air sweet with honeysuckle and orange groves. How does he know? Has he been there? Straight from the source. One bottle and he loosens his waistcoat. A second and he loosens his tongue. No, I've never been to Nida. Not in the flesh, at least. He leans close. But I once tasted red honey and the memories of a man who had. I only saw fragments, an army at the walls, a breach, a rallying cry. Liberty, equality, eternity. A third bottle. Where could you taste these memories for yourself? Go to the Isle of Cats. Talk to the cat's chiefest claw. Ask about the far-traveled notary. But if you're wise, you'll do like me. Use what you learned to get free drinks. Immortalities for gods and monsters. So that's going to be much later in the game, I suspect, because I've been there in a past game. The Isle of Cats is kind of far away. So let's see. Is there anything else to do here for now, or do we go ahead? I think we go ahead. One last thing that I will do, though, I'll buy some more of that wine, because this actually sells for 23 in Vendorbyte, so we can make a tiny little profit. An unfortunate part of this game is that it's kind of difficult to come by money. You do get a nice trickle in, but it's hard to come by larger quantities, so sometimes you just want to run trade routes, which I don't think is that great, because I don't think the style of this game really lends itself to grinding too well. But it is what it is, so. And here we can see this is our boat. We can control it. We have a light. That is a potential enemy, but as long as we stay pretty clear... Oh, there's another enemy. We'll turn out our light here in hopes that they don't see us. Just keep moving. Alright, we're good. So we did take a little bit of damage there, but that's one of the nice things about having the high veil stat, is that we can usually navigate away from enemies by just turning off our lights. Because like I said, combat is expensive and time-consuming in the early game. Alright, so now we're at Vendorbyte. You've brought this decaying immigrant north. Now what? Yeah, let's help them out. Your tomb colonist passenger yanks off her bandages. She looks remarkably healthy for a tomb colonist. I'm not as dead as I look, she confesses. And I won't get ashore without your help. Yes, the constables are looking for me back home. Is that a problem? You slip your furtive passenger past the skin check post and the confirmation of consolation. Thanks, Captain, she remarks casually. Let me teach you a couple of tricks, just in case you do this again. And here's a little hush money. Nice, so our veil's increased, and we got a pretty tremendous amount of money there. We now have one menace's suspicion. That just means that, when we go back to London, the port authorities will be slightly more wary of us. It's not a big deal. And, let's see... Didn't we have another, what's this one? Alright, the tomb colony of Vendorbyte. On deck you can hear the sound that 1,000 bandaged dead make as they shuffle and cough. It's something like the world's most restless concert audience, or the world's most plague-ridden cathedral. Find ancient captains to speak to the unsettled salvager. Okay, so this is the first guy that we picked up. It shouldn't be too hard. What else have they got to do around here but molder? Terrible bad luck. An assortment of decrepit Z captains gathers around her, compelled by tradition, honor, or boredom. She picks her nails and closes her eyes when at last she speaks. I want to find Lady Black. The captains that can run do. The rest shuffle away as swiftly as they're able. Only one remains behind. How long were you down there, he asks. 20 minutes, she replies. The captain puts his hand on her shoulder. Seek the House of the Keel in Polythreme, he says. But if you can forget her, do. It's possible. He embraces her and departs. So it seems like our first passenger is going to want us to go to Polythreme now. Alright. We can go ahead and explore the city. Here they favor candlelight over gaslight. The shadows are swagged like cobwebs. The tomb colonists stand still enough to be mistaken for sculpture, until they laugh or cough. One building in 3 seems abandoned. The Carmine Chapel. A little chapel stands alone. You poke your head through the door. The walls are a deep red, just this side of scarlet. A ruby-tinted window at the back glows with steady light. An electric lamp behind the glass? Rare and expensive, but this is no gaslight. No one is here, and yet you have the sensation that only a moment ago, someone must have been. Sure, we'll make an offering. Drop a coin into the empty offering box. An uncertain outcome. Prayer soothes the soul, they say. Your soul is not soothed. You wait, head bent, while the light in the chapel beats on, shadowless and unmoved. Nothing changes. The red of the place gets into your vision. The faces of your crew seem flushed, as if fevered. You hear your own breathing echo raggedly. No one is sitting in the pew behind you. It doesn't stop you from looking. The scene will stay with you. Perhaps you can write it off when you return to London. Or write of it, not write it off. So we've gained terror and a tale of terror. And let's go ahead and gather some gossip. Along the coasts of the Untersee, it's remarkably hard to die. The decrepit and nearly dead who leave London become tomb colonists and settle here in bandaged peace. But they don't give up their ties to home or their politics. You gather a haul of complex clues, enough to keep your contacts in London interested. So we've gathered a port report for this city. And this brings us into probably the most important early game narrative mechanic, which is that of port reports. Whenever we visit a place, we can compile a port report, which we can then take back to London and give to the Admiral's office in exchange for fuel and money and those sorts of things. It's very, very good. And I don't really have any reason to see the first curator right now. That's sort of like a later game story. We'll go ahead and drop off our wine that we bought, make a whole 4 echoes, and we'll be on our way back to London. We'll go ahead and stop by this place called Hunter's Keep. A quiet isle, a grand house. A hump of dark rock swathed in mist like 100 other Untersee islands. But here is a grand house, windows aglow, lawns impossibly green and lush in the false starlight, raked gravel paths. You stand on the dock as the sea nudges the ship's sides. An unexpectedly warm breeze carries the faintest trace of lavender. Let's see, let's go ahead and spy on the house first. Piano music drifts across the terrace. You peer through a half-open French window into a grand parlor, grand in size, if a little reduced in style by dust and neglect. A dark-haired, pale-skinned young woman bends earnestly over a piano keyboard. Another, a fair-haired but unmistakably her sister, sprawls on the sofa with a book. A third sits by the fireplace, staring sorrowfully into the embers. Soon, she says, and the piano music falters and stops. We'll go hungry, and then the end will come, for me, but not for you. The pianist raises her eyes from the keyboard. Hush, if we don't speak of it. She frowns. Has she seen you at the window? You withdraw. Let's go ahead and get a port report. Ships rarely come here, nothing changes, even the weather. The house is the heart of the isle, the house and the sisters. But the Admiralty may be happy to know at least nothing's changed. We'll go ahead and present ourselves at the house. A maid with smoldering topaz eyes shows you into the parlor where 3 young women await. A visitor, the youngest cries, the next youngest chuckles, the eldest sighs. Do excuse the indecorum, she says. Visitors are rare. You are very welcome. I am Cynthia, the noisy one is Phoebe, and the cheerful one is Lucy. You are in good time for lunch. Will you join us? Alright, so we can choose which of the sisters to eat with. I usually choose Cynthia. She's the eldest, melancholy, pensive, occasionally dramatic. Cynthia grasps your arm and whispers to you. Her eyes are wide and blue. Her hair is wild and tangled. Bats might nest in it. It seems to you that you are sitting on a hillside above a wild blue lake listening to the story of a murder. An axe, a net, blood on scented water. Another chop? Cynthia asks. You've barely touched your food. Here, I'll have the maid wrap something for you. You can't go hungry. It's not safe to be hungry. So we've gained terror, a tale of terror. We got a supply, and our hunger dropped down. So, and now the gods of the Z, Zalt's attention quality is now Exclamation point. It's watching you, if it even exists. So there are, I believe, 3 sort of weird, nebulous gods that exist in the Untersee. They're sort of Lovecraftian, like alien intelligences, and Salt is one of them. Alright. Back to London. Okay, it looks like someone wants to talk to us. A little gift. A very fine evening to you, Captain. My what you might call mentor is very fond of adventurous Z-Captains, and he would like to offer you what you might call a dispensation on account of he is so fond of Z-Captains. So this is the Blind Bruiser. Behind the Blind Bruiser on the dock stands a dray piled high with fuel and supplies. I don't need to inquire further for now. We'll go ahead and just take it. A courteous nod. Well, my patron hopes that you find these little gifts to your liking, and he expects that perhaps someday you might choose to call on him at the Medusa's head. Should that day come, we will make you very welcome and give you any safe conduct what you might require. Good evening to you. So this guy is going to want a favor at a later date, but we've got 10 fuel and 5 supplies, which is pretty sweet. So let's go ahead and visit the Admiralty's office. And they'll pay for information from Z-Captains. Let's see. Go ahead and turn in Hunter's Keep. I trust the sisters are keeping well. They are citizens of her enduring majesty, notionally. So there we go. We got some Eckers, we got favors, and we got fuel. We'll do Vendor Bright. What have the nearly dead been up to? And that's that basic mechanic. And sometimes they will wish us to go to some specific place. So let's see. Yeah, Gator's Mourn is the first place that they want us to go to collect strategic information. So the next thing that we'll do here is in London, we shall see if we can hire on another officer, which is, okay, I think we'll need to rest first. Go ahead and do that. Whoops. Go to London. Okay, we need another day, a new recruit, so I guess we're no good on that yet. In which case, there's really not much to be done here right now. So I can go ahead and search for Gator's Mourn. We have a ton of supplies and a ton of fuel, so we're pretty much set there. I don't really see any reason to go north right now, so probably going to leave off here, but next time we'll go ahead and try to find Gator's Mourn to get that report for the Admiralty.